According to an article written in 2020 by Christina L. Lyon titled Police Under Scrutiny, it states that officials have shot an average of nearly 1,000 citizens annually since 2015. About half of the victims were white, but blacks, who account for less than 13% of the U.S. population, were killed more than twice the rate of whites. Well, how would you feel if you had to wrongfully deal with misconduct and received no justice and compensation for a police officer's actions? I am educated on the topic of qualified immunity because I have done my thorough research in reading newspapers, online credible sources, and books. My name is Crystal Hope Masawa, and I believe that the law should abolish qualified immunity for the police officers and government officials. Well, within this speech, I will be giving out an example of a case that violated a child's Fourth Amendment right, explain why qualified immunity shields the police officers from being held accountable for their excessive use of force, and explain that the court system favors law enforcement more than their citizens. I will also be discussing who is being affected by this, the significance of getting rid of qualified immunity, how we can get rid of it, and what will be the outcomes if we do get rid of this. These three examples that I have will mention and explain why Congress needs to abolish qualified immunity. According to an article written in 2017 by Joanna C. Schwartz called Qualified Immunity Fails, it explains that qualified immunity shields government officials from constitutional claims for money damages so long as the officials did not violate clearly established laws. Qualified immunity fails to permit justice to citizens who have been wrongfully handled with misconduct. It renders the protection of a person's Fourth Amendment right. And the Safford versus Redding case of 2009 presented a problem where the Fourth Amendment right of a 13-year-old child was violated because she was told to strip down to her bra and underwear when being searched by the school officials. This was stated by Justice Sauter in 2009 when he delivered the opinion of the Court for Legal Information of Cornell. A school searching of a student is entitled to qualified immunity, where clearly established laws does not show that the search violated the Fourth Amendment. In order to take a step towards racism in law enforcement, the first step is to hold these officers accountable for their excessive force and misconduct. Qualified immunity impacts people of color because they are disproportionately exposed to unnecessary excessive force. According to an article written for the University of Chicago Law School, it states that, written by Susie Allen in 2020, it states that, indeed, the police presence actually instills terror in many young Black and brown folks. The lack of accountability is primary impediment to real change. Without accountability, officials know they can abuse people and not lose their jobs or be prosecuted. Well, a culture and a reality of accountability can make a dramatic difference. The court system favors law enforcement over the justice of civilians who have dealt with police brutality. Many cases, like unfortunately the George Floyd case or the Breonna Taylor case, have all been examples of the court system favoring against law enforcement due to the excessive duration it took to charge these officers. In a document written in 2020 by Congressional Research Service team titled Policing the Police, it explains that from 2005 to 2007, 44% of courts favorable police in excessive force cases. Now that number jumped to 57% from 2017 to 2019. Whenever police brutality or misconduct is relevant, qualified immunity will always be relevant because there has been one too many cases where people do not receive the justice that they deserve because of the civilians have little to no leverage against law enforcement because of the unfairness of the court system. In a study conducted by Pew Research Center, they found that 66%, or 2/3 of Americans, believe that civilians have no power to should have power to sue a police officer to hold them accountable for the use of misconduct and excessive force. Well, New York State Senator Myrie stated that in an article posted in 2020 titled Senator Eleanor Y. Myrie to introduce bill to end police qualified immunity, states that both liberal and conservatives agree that the doctrine is unfair. Victims of police brutality have been unable to receive relief because of every turn of the courts have used the doctrine of qualified immunity to shield officers from liability. Well, everyone is affected by this, especially minority groups who are more likely to receive little to no justice due to qualified immunity. In a news press article titled Senator Marquis, Sanders, and Warren introduce legislation to end qualified immunity, written in 2020 by an unlisted author, explains that, according to a National Academy of Science study, Black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by law enforcement over their lifetime. Approximately 1 in 1,000 Black men can expect to be killed by a police officer. Well, a great example of this would be the George Floyd case of 2020, where George Floyd, was killed due to the excessive force of Minneapolis police officers Derek Chauvin. By taking all of these points into consideration, we must act against this law to see a change. The only solution to this problem is reform. Getting rid of qualified immunity will appeal to every American citizen's safety and security needs, because both victim and police will both have equal opportunity and chance to being charged in the face of the law. To take this action, we must educate people about qualified immunity and why we should get rid of it, participate in community events, and sign petitions in regards to limiting police advantages. With this plan, we will successfully push the topic into light and have reform permitting a person's security in the eyes of the law. So, both law enforcement and citizens will have an equal chance to win their case without one dominating one or the other. Thinking back to all the lives lost due to police brutality, the victims of excessive force by law enforcement, and to all the unfortunate ones that may come to the future, we can all agree that they deserve their chance to be properly heard and get the justice that they deserve. So, qualified immunity must be abolished. Qualified immunity renders a person's Fourth Amendment rights, and it greatly affects targeted Black people and other people of color, more often than not. We must hold these police officers accountable, and in order to do so, we need to make change. We need to participate in community events and educate yourself about this topic. We also need to sign petitions in support of the End Qualified Immunity Act. After taking all of this into consideration, I urge you all to act upon the End Qualified Immunity Act. We need to do our part in order to receive the justice we deserve if we ever encounter a problem. After taking all of this into consideration once again, I leave you with this quote by Mayor Jenny A. Durkin in an article published in 2020 titled Fighting for Statewide Reforms. She states that qualified immunity shields police officers for decades. Now it's time to ensure our state laws to end it. Thank you.